Hey, listeners, I'd like to welcome you to the show today. I've got a very special guest on with me, Mr. Brock Thompson, an amazing realtor who spent 9 years in the public school system, married, got four wonderful kids, and he is currently the team lead of Brock Thompson Real Estate Team. Brock, welcome to the show today, man.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been wanting to talk to you here for quite a while. So, and not really just because you're a Clemson guy and I'm a Virginia Tech guy. We'll get into that later, I think.
So we'll get
Uh,
into that. And at least it's all in the ACC, so we're okay.
yeah, gotta put that out there. Absolutely. So Brock, let's just start off. I like to start off with guests and just find out a little about your road, how you got here. I mean, it seems like selling real estate is quite a distance away from being a school.
It is and it isn't. So I'll kind of get to explain there. I mean, I was a teacher, like as you said, for 9 years. Loved it. And my wife actually was a VP at an interior design or architecture firm as an interior
Huh.
designer from Virginia Tech, graduated from Virginia Tech with their program. But she wanted to be able to stay home and to be with our, as we started having children. And unfortunately, these days, teaching is just not going to quite cover those bills to be able to make it. So I knew I wanted to do something that I could still teach. And so I took my teaching philosophy from my classroom into basically the teaching philosophy of real estate, because I feel like too often we come across people that are agents that, we're getting into it, but they don't necessarily have that teaching and that caring, that I wanted to bring that caring background into it to like, hey, just like I would teach my students and I care about them, I wanted every client that I have not to be a one-time deal, but a lifelong friendship and somewhere that I could literally teach them. How does it go? What does it look like? What can you expect? So that way they're empowered as they're going through the process and not just oh man, I have a house now. What do I do? Or how did I even get here? I wanted to be able to bring what I took from teaching and that commitment to my students into real estate. And that's kind of how I ended up here is I just knew that I had to do something that I could be an active part in people's lives and not just kind of off to the side. And so I didn't want a desk job. I wanted something that I could actually be a part of their lives and hopefully for years to come. And thankfully to this point, I have been able to accomplish that. But that's why I say that teaching it taught me what they needed to do to move in and still continue to be with people. And they know like there's a lot of salesmen out there, a lot of people out there, but I wanted to bring a little bit different because unfortunately our industry sometimes gets the used car salesman, rap. And it's like, well, we're really not, as a whole, we're not. And then I wanted to bring in that we do really care about you. And what I wanted to change that idea of what realtors are as a whole, not just me. And so thankfully I've had that opportunity and been very blessed as it's gone along.
No, that's awesome. That actually is a really good point. I've been involved in the industry since 1998 on the lending side, and it just amazes me how how many pieces there are to this whole process, and particularly if you're dealing with people that have never bought a home before. I know you specialized early on with first time home buyers, and they're this is a big step buying your first house, right?
Yes, absolutely. And most people just don't, they only see what they see on TV from HGTV or anything else. And they don't understand the process. And even in those shows, they normally isn't really much with the agent. They show them three houses and say, hey, pick. It's like, well, that's not exactly how this works. It'd be kind of nice sometimes if that was easier, but that's not really how it is. And so with buyers, it is really going to be a connection. You're going to have to get to know them because many times, as I've learned, they may send me a list. And by the time we actually find the house, 90% of what was on their list that they wanted really isn't what they liked when they actually got there, but they had to see it. And you have to be patient and understanding and say, hey, this is a really important part. This is just something paint. We can change a paint color. Don't not pick the house because it was, an ugly color. We can change that, but we want to make sure that the house itself is going to be good for you. And yeah, there's a lot more pieces than just that. Jump in and say, oh, wait, let's show three houses, make your choice and congratulations. You're a first time home buyer. Let's go. So
Man,
yeah.
I tell you, it's like, yeah, TV. I always get to think about, reality TV, right? There's nothing real about any of it.
There's nothing reality about it.
My favorite was the fix and flip people. You know, they're all at least in the beginning, they're all in California. They walk in this
Yeah,
house and they're like, "Hey, if we put a new mantle piece up here, we can sell the house for $100,000 more." And I'm like,
exactly.
"Okay, really?" I'm having my kitchen redone right now, and it's like this is a long drawn out process. And then TV, they get that stuff done in like 2 days. I'm like,
Yeah, it's
wow.
done real fast. It's amazing how fast they get that stuff. So yeah, I agree.
Well, I would say that that's a huge value though. I mean, in terms of really the teaching piece, because you're not, I mean, I find great salespeople are not, it's not the used car slick
Mhm.
approach. It's building that relationship. It's understanding your client. It's
Yep.
educating them on options. Cause you know, for you, you probably don't care which house they choose, right? You want them to have the best house for their particular situation and needs.
Exactly. And I mean, and people see that because I'll talk to them about their budget and we'll kind of try to dive into some things that they don't necessarily.
So what you were saying there, Brock, was that you really want to help educate these first time home buyers so they don't get themselves in a situation that we used to call house poor, right? Where they've got this beautiful house, but now they've got, wow, this power bill. They want to, they got to take care of the yard, they've got maintenance, and oh my gosh, there's a lot more involved to buying a home and actually maintaining a home so that you can really position yourself in the future, just not to only have a place for your family and all the things that the school system, everything that goes with that, but really the first block on wealth creation for your future, right, is home ownership.
Absolutely. And I think that's, I mean, normally this is one of the largest purchases most families or people are going to be making. And so you want to treat that like you truly an advisor in that role to help them. And it is, people are scared. They're nervous. There's all those emotions all the way up to the day of closing. And honestly, after closing, when they start to realize that, but if you've laid that foundation with them and really let them know that you're not gone. Like I'm still here to answer questions. And I get plenty of calls that are like, hey, do you have a plumber? Do you have this? And so I've worked to build that network. So that way they have one stop, one person to go to and not a whole bunch of different people to try to figure out that they have, that I've vetted people. And so it truly becomes a friendship and a bond to help them grow into their home and enjoy their home for what it truly should be and build that wealth off of that home where I'm located, we have so many military that they're here for 3 4 years and then they're gone. And it's so crucial to put them in a house in a position that they can enjoy their house while they're there. And but they have either the option to sell it when they have to go or turn it into a rental. And that continues to build that wealth for them while they're serving our country, no matter where they're at. And so I always tell people, I'm like, hey, I'm looking at today, but I'm trying to look at down the road for you too. So that way I feel like if you call me tomorrow and say, hey, Brock, they actually just called me up and I'm deployed, I'm leaving in 3 weeks. I already have a game plan that I've already thought of. Even if you aren't thinking of it, I've tried to think through it. So that way I put you in a position that'll be for future, not just this day right now. And it is you know, again, but it's called the relationship. Everything comes back to building that relationship. And if they trust you there, they'll believe in you. They'll follow
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, and and sometimes there are challenges on buying the house too, right? I mean, so you have to navigate that, the pitfalls along the way. And man, if you've never done it, I just remember back when I bought my first house. It's been a few years ago, back in the '90s, but I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea the questions to ask,
Exactly.
what to look for, and so that's awesome. That's awesome. And so you help these customers get in, but then you're also talking about the long term. So you mentioned investments and things like that. So do you also help them, with investment properties or
I do.
what do you do there?
That is another area, especially because crazy enough, when I first got into this, my mentor actually, I did a lot of research when I was kind of find a company and a place that I wanted to come into. And my mentor was repeatedly brought up when I kept asking for names about being not only a fantastic realtor, but one of the top investing agents in the area. And so I was actually reached out to her specifically, asked for it. And so when I was training, she was also teaching to me, like, this is what the investment world looks like. And this is how you can help people grow into that investing. And it honestly was probably one of the best ways that I could have started because it taught me a different way of looking at the house. Because I was always looking at them and investors telling me, or contractors saying, hey, these things are expensive. These things look expensive or real cheap. And so now when I walk through a house with a client, I now look at it from the investment side and not necessarily just simply like, oh, this is really pretty. Well, no, what other things are there in this house? But it has taught me now to help them. Hey, this may not be your forever home. This may be a great investment, or it may be an investment that we can use money out of it to go get an investment or get you a rental or purchase a rental that will help you continue to supplement your income. And because I had both sides of those, especially coming in, it has helped me grow an investment portfolio for people to help them, really turn that wealth and that little bit of when they're growing instead of just, not knowing what to do with their money as they grow. It's like, hey, come back to me. Let's turn it into we spent money, but now you're getting a monthly return on that money every month. And so it has having that knowledge and having that starting point has truly been an incredible blessing because I just wasn't necessarily where I thought it was, but it has turned into a really big help for my first time home buyers all the way through to my home buyers that have been doing things for years and doing that investment properties. I can help that whole spectrum of clientele.
Do you also a property manager? I mean, when they decide to turn that property into a rental?
We do property management. I try to keep that on a smaller scale, and it's just because
Mm,
it is I'll look at it as if we have people in place that if there's going to be a long term or they want it to be that way, I've partnered up with a couple of another people that work for my team that they kind of handle that. But as a team, we can handle it for you as well. But yeah, I kind of trained them, and then now I'm like they can take care of that way. So we have them taking care of that every day. If there's that random call, we have somebody ready to take it and address it right away. So yes, now we do the
gotcha.
investment, we manage it, so we kind of do all the full spectrum of it.
So it's a full circle thing. Well,
Right.
that's awesome. And so, yeah, I mean, investment properties is what a great way to build wealth. We have a lot of clients that do that as well, and the tax advantages, the cash
Exactly.
flow, particularly in an inflationary environment like we're in right now. I mean, home prices go up. I mean, even with the craziness of the last 2 years, if you take that out, if you look at an average appreciation rate in our area of maybe 4%, that really adds up
It
over
does.
time.
It does.
So if you have a $300,000 house and, gosh, that's 12,000 in free equity every year, that's just going to compound.
Exactly. And so, and that's what I try to teach them to say, this is see the long term game, not always, tomorrow, but it may be, over 3, 5, 10 years. What are you changing your family's future for? And, again, talking about as we started with college, some of these people, that's how they're paying for their kids' schools is, what they're making off these rentals is now turn around and going to help provide for their
Yeah.
families in another way. So they still building equity in their house, yet they're still paying for bills, to help other family members or their children. So it is a great wealth building possibility for people.
And the most awesome thing about it that I love is that somebody else pays the mortgage.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right? That bill doesn't come to me every month. It's the people that are renting the homes. So now tell me this. You mentioned we were talking here before we got cranked up that on the other side of this, we're talking about like helping people buy homes and then maybe, turn them into rentals or acquire rentals. But let's say I'm leaving, I'm going to go to the area. I want to sell my house. I'm out of there. You talked about there's an art to how to list that home and to get top dollar for my house, but also be competitive, right? Because I mean, if you price it out of the market, nobody will buy it.
Exactly.
So talk about that a little bit.
So this is where you come into wanting an experienced agent because we've now seen things for a longer period than the last few months. And the last 2 years have kind of been they've been almost like a unicorn as over the last 10 years. So when we start to really go
Yeah.
in there, we need to look at your house. And this, up to 3 months ago, we could really almost throw your house on the market and it was immediately going to be
Mhm.
picked up because the inventory was so low. The people were going crazy with this interest rate so low. And that's not the normal market. And people, but really
Yeah.
getting in there and the same kind of thing is talking to your client or potential seller and setting expectations. So as we're kind of shifting markets a little bit now, again, it's going in and talking to them, looking at them and saying, hey, this is the data, but let me break down data. It's not just simply a numbers. It says your house is, 350. Well, was that because of the house down the street, 6 months ago sold there? Or are we looking at what's going on right now? And it may be, but it's looking at what needs to be and again, we kind of go back to the HGTV. Sometimes people go overboard when you may look at it and I say, hey, look, it really, if you give me, to let me update some of your fixtures and do some painting, that may be your biggest bang for your buck without going crazy on
Mhm.
anything. Yet I've now made your house look fresh. And they're like, oh, really? Like, I don't have to go. No, not necessarily. Like, if there's things that I can work with you, and I'm very hands on. Like, sometimes my wife claims that I'm too hands on with like to do things, but I like to get in there and show them, hey, some of these are not hard fixes. Let me come over. I'll walk you through. This is what we can do to, clean up your yard. Let me come over and help you. Hey, let's make the curb appeal come back again to your house where, yes, you liked it. It was privacy on your, bushes that grew up, but they may need to be trimmed down so that we can actually see there's a window behind it. Things like that. It is,
Right.
but it's being willing to get in there with them and not just say, hey, you go do this. Well, explain why they're doing something. And when you do those, a lot of times those fixes, and I mean, even I'm amazed in our industry how often I get professional photos on every listing. It's because that puts your house in the best light. Too often I still see, and again, it's not every agent by any means, but there's, the photos off there. I mean, we have great, you know, cell phones now, but that isn't necessarily going to give you the same image for your house. And so it's little things like that that just help
Yeah.
you, getting in there, talking to them, walking a house with them and saying, hey, this is what I see. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, walk into your room, walk back out of your room, take a second, and then walk back in it. Tell me what you see. Most of the time when they do that, they can say, oh, I forgot that I didn't ever put that outlet cover over there. Or, oh, I forgot that I never painted that corner or my blinds. Oh yeah, that blind's broken over there. Okay, now you see what a buyer's gonna walk through the door and see, and they're like, "Oh, well, that's easy fix. That's $10 of my, blinds." Yeah, okay, but you didn't think about that until just now. It's things like that
Right.
that can stretch the dollar a little bit further, and we kind of, and again, it's building in and having people that I know that I can trust that are competitive in what they're going to charge if they can't do it themselves. A lot of people can do it themselves, and I'll tell them, do these things yourself, and then let's have a professional do here because if it happens to come up on a home inspection, I'd much prefer us to have a professional or like literally just changing out outlets or things that they could do themselves or a running toilet. Let's do it yourself. Let's fix it now, where that's $25 fix from Home Depot instead of having a licensed you know, plumber have to fix it at a home inspection. So those kind of things is where we really focus on saving them the large amount of money up front, and then also later on in the game where they're not getting nickel and dimed to death, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was." Well, if we took care of it ahead of time, it's a whole lot cheaper because we didn't have to jump through as many hoops. So my team and I really work at getting in there, walking every property, talking to you about what's going on in your neighborhood, and setting realistic expectations of like, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, the average listing was 6 hours. We need it may be 3-4 weeks, and let's not panic over that,
Right.
and let them know, hey, I'm going to call you every Monday. So, or if I have an update, I'll get you the update. But you're going to hear from us on a communication level at worst every this so often.
Mhm.
And people are like, wow, okay. Like I never had communication from somebody else. Well, that's where we're trying to be different is just setting that up where when you can expect to hear from us, and we'll call, and then you will answer those questions. But again, it's starting from the day one when we walk through the house and talking to you, and again, the more I've seen people, when I'm willing to jump in there with them, and our team is, they have a whole different. They get more money for their house. They trust us on what we're suggesting on things, and our actions produce at the end of it. So they can say, not only did they tell me to do it and work it with me, it wasn't on me. Now he's produced the results that we said we were going to work at, and so it becomes again that relationship from beginning to end. We were there. We were hands on. We were a partner in it, not just a sign in the front yard. They
Mhm.
became that partner of you, and it really does, make a difference on what value they're getting out of that house when we finish out.
Wow. Man, there's a lot there to unpack. That's awesome. I mean, a couple things come to mind. It's like, first impressions are lasting
Absolutely.
impressions, right? So so if I come look at that house, whatever that first impression is gonna set my
Yeah.
tone. No nose blind, right? It's like you can't smell, you don't know that you got some BO
Yeah.
going on because you stink the whole time,
Yeah.
right? It's like, okay, yeah, it's like somebody needs to tell me, and I need to, take a shower. But that is, but it is true. We have we get so like in our world, we don't realize we're just so used to it, right? That it's just kind of normal. But somebody else like you is comes in and you're like, hey, I know what people want. I know what buyers
Yeah.
want. I know what sells. And the other thing is that the 80/20. I mean, I try to live my life by 80/20. What are the small things you could
Exactly.
do to get the big return, everywhere, right?
Yes.
So that makes sense. So you're really getting in there. You're just all in. You're not just signing a contract. You're like, okay, I'm gonna make my commission and we're gonna throw it up on MLS.
Correct. Like we are. It goes back to my connection with my beloved Tigers. Our thing is all in. I've always been all in on everything, whether it was teaching, whether now with real estate, or when I'm there. Like it is truly.
Mm,
I have clients, just as an example right now, that they were moved. They're in Texas. That was where family got called, but things need to be done here. And some things, again, I was able to pass off to contractors, but one set of lights, they didn't show up on time. We ordered them, they didn't come. It's just kind of the world we're in right now. Things don't always, but I couldn't wait. My wife and I,
yeah,
and my
for sure.
kids, we went and put all the lights in and installed them. And we got them in so that way for pictures, they were there. We could wait. We didn't want to delay it. They needed it. And
Yeah,
those are kind of things that, they're small and they may not necessarily go recognized, but the client realizes
yeah,
like, man, you saved my butt because you jumped in there and were willing to do it and be hands on. They're out of town. I would go by and
yeah,
check on their house every couple of days to make sure everything's the way it was, that there's no lights left on. Yeah, the little things that just mean that you took care of their property and that the neighbors see it. They're there because they originally got calls like, "Hey, there's a guy in your house," and I walked out. I said, "Yeah, it's me. This is who I am."
Who was this
It does
guy?
all the time. Like, I know it's not normal, but I will be here every couple of days. So say hi. Like that's it. But now the neighbors know,
Who's this guy in the
yeah,
Clemson
why is he
T-shirt?
coming on my Clemson TV? Yeah, but that gives you that feel. But I've had my clients say, you know what, we really appreciated. We couldn't have accomplished the things from Texas that you were willing to just jump in and do. We didn't even have to ask you. I'm like, no, I want you to
Yeah,
be okay to live your life where you're at. Like life called you that way. Enjoy it there. I'll take care of what's on the home front here. And that's our my team and I's
right.
motto is we're here to take care of you. So hopefully you don't have to stress. There's always stress in every deal, but hopefully there's a lot less stress when we're dealing with it to take care of you.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. I mean, you're truly going to bat for the client and you're serving them. It's all about serving.
Exactly.
I was told a long time ago that he who wins the most in business serves the best and the most, and you can never go wrong there. And then people keep coming back, and it's just, and that makes it nice, right? You're not having to lose sleep at night over something that you didn't do or you didn't
Perfect.
do correctly, right?
Yeah. I don't, I like to go to bed and
Yeah.
be able to rest.
All right. Yeah, yeah, I mean, particularly with all that work you're doing, absolutely. So so Brock, we're heading down to the last couple of minutes here, so amazingly, let me ask you this, it's kind of fun now, what's the best piece of advice that you think you've ever gotten when it comes to either real estate sales or just life in general, you think?
I mean, I still think we've kind of touched it several times. To me, the best piece of advice from any aspect is seeing the person and building relationships with people, because as a whole, everybody wants to be cared about. No matter who you are, where you're at, you wants to know that you want to know somebody cares about you. And in business, if they know you care about them, then that goes forever. If it's family, if it's friends, it doesn't matter. It goes across the board on everything. And to me, that I was told that young, very young, build those relationships. And that's what I've built my entire life on, is building friendships, building relationships. And it has just carried right into my business model. And I think no matter what your business model is, you can't go wrong with that. And so that to me is the biggest and best piece of advice I could add to anybody, is get to know the person. And, you know, people are there. And I don't think too often what we see is on Facebook, and that, we don't really have a relationship. We just see what perfect world they want us to see, and get to know them where they can actually talk to you, and you not be like, just be a person with them and build that.
Right. No, that's great. That's great advice. What do you do for fun?
I I play baseball. Anything sports wise is my avenue. I love to be competitive no matter what it is. My wife says I'm way too competitive, but I I love a good challenge on anything. And I coach, like I coach, all right now I'm coaching, or a part of a coaching staff on three different my kids teams of baseball. Like I coach my oldest, I coach my daughter is still playing baseball, and my youngest daughter and my youngest son, I coach their coach pitch team, and then kid pitch team, and now my a little bit higher team. So I love coaching. I love being out there. I mean, it kind of falls into my teaching again, but it's just being a part of their lives and just kind of being able to work with it. But coaching, if I could do it every day, I would do it, because it's a pure joy to me.
You and Dabo, right? You could
Yeah,
hang out with
exactly.
Dabo Sweeney.
Yeah, I
He
always
needs some new coaches, I think. He lost 2 this
I
year.
would not my kid, no, I tell all the time, I'm like, if Coach Dabo calls, I'm out. Like I'll see y'all when I at the end of
That's right. That's right. That's right. Hey, I'm a Hokie fan. I certainly appreciate what Clemson and Dabo have done. And if he ever called me, I'd be there too, because he seems like an amazing guy with an amazing
exactly.
program, an amazing culture. And well, real quick, Brock, how can our listeners get up with you if they need an awesome superstar agent?
The easiest way, I mean, is we're Brock Thompson Real Estate, and that's brockthompsonrealestate.com is the website. They can easily go there and find me. And then, like I said, reaching out to me, my phone number is 757-615-6359. I'm always around it, and like I said, we're always looking to be that next service for people, to be that help, just to be that resource. And that's what I've always built that career. And I want it to always be that way. But again, we're always here to help any way we can. So that would be great for them to reach out, and we'd love to talk to them.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll get that in the show notes
Sure.
for sure. So it'll be in there. People can pick that up.
Excellent.
So, man, Brock, it's been great catching up with you, man. I've really enjoyed this conversation. You're a lot of fun, and I can tell that you love your clients and who you work with, and you're a super cool
Well,
guy.
I appreciate it,
So,
Paul.
have an
Thank you
awesome
so
day, man.
much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.